started.
Good morning and welcome to today's public hearing. The time is 2:05 on Monday, April 9th, 2018, and we are in the second floor conference room of 100 Church Street. My name is Patrick C. Scotti. I am Executive Agency Counsel and Market Manager of the New York City Business Integrity Commission. Thank you for attending today's hearing. The Commission is conducting this hearing pursuant to the requirements set forth by the City Administrative Procedure Act, commonly referred to as CAPA. The purpose of this hearing is to receive comments from the public on the Commission's proposed rules regarding the amendment of maximum rates allowed for collecting and disposing of trade waste. The Commission published the proposed rules in the City Record on March 6, 2018. We also disseminated a copy of the rules via email to all New York City local elected officials, the managers of all 59 community boards, several media organizations in the city, and other interested parties. Lastly, we posted the proposed rules on both the Commission's and the NYC Rules' websites. In summary, the Commission is proposing to amend Title 17 of the Rules of the City of New York to raise the maximum rates that private carters can charge for removal of trade waste by 5.6%. This rate would apply to refuse, organic waste, paper, cardboard, metal, glass, and plastics. As background for this hearing, the Commission is authorized to set by rule the maximum rates by weight and by volume that trade waste haulers can charge for the removal of putrescible and traditional recyclable commercial waste. The maximum rates were previously adjusted in 2016. The Commission must base any changes to the maximum rates on a fair and reasonable return to the private carters who provide trade waste removal services to commercial establishments in New York City, while also protecting those using these services from excessive or unreasonable charges. To achieve this balance, the Commission established an administrative procedure that provides greater transparency, standardization, and regularity in the rate-setting process. Pursuant to Commission rules, a hearing was held on October 18, 2017, relating to the maximum rates charged by a private carter for the collection, removal, disposal, or recycling of trade waste. The hearing was attended by representatives of the trade waste industry and other interested parties, some of whom testified at the hearing and submitted written testimony. The Commission has carefully evaluated the evidence provided throughout the process, including the oral statements made at the October 2017 hearing and the written statements submitted both prior to and after the hearing. In accordance with Title 17 of the Rules of the City of New York, Section 502G, the Commission has reviewed various relevant factors affecting the trade waste industry and its customers. Those factors include, but are not limited to, the Producer Price Index published by the U.S. Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics, data contained in private carters' financial statements filed with the Commission, and certain data relating to increases in operating and capital costs provided to the Commission by members of the trade waste industry. Based on its review, the Commission proposes to increase by 5.6% the current maximum rates that trade waste haulers can charge, from $18.87 per cubic yard, or $12.38 per 100 pounds, to $19.93 per cubic yard, and $13.07 per 100 pounds. The Commission also has made some plain language revisions to the rule relating to rates in the trade waste industry. That concludes the summary of the proposed rule changes at issue at this hearing. You may present an oral statement for the record or submit written comments concerning the proposed rule changes. Additionally, the Commission has been accepting written comments on the proposed rules since the publication in the City Record and will continue to do so through the close of business today. The Commission will make available a copy of any written comments that are received in connection with today's hearing on its website. The Commission will carefully review and consider all comments and submissions and make changes if the Commission deems them necessary. The rules will go into effect 30 days after they are published in the City Record. We will begin by calling those of you who wish to speak this morning or this afternoon in the order in which you have signed in. When you speak, please state your full name and affiliation and speak slowly and clearly so that the court reporter can understand and accurately transcribe your statement. We ask that you limit your statement to 5 minutes. The Commission's Director of Policy, Salvador Arona, will now begin calling up members of the public to testify.
Our first speaker is Ron Bergamini from Action.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ron Bergamini. I'm the CEO of Action Environmental Group. We're the parent company to Action Carting, the largest private hauler of solid waste in New York City. At the hearing of October 18, 2017, I testified on the merits of the rate cap and additional costs facing all responsible solid waste companies. Please refer to that testimony for your review as it frames the discussion in terms of business fundamentals affecting all industry participants. We feel the need for a rate cap is past. The basic economic problem with any artificial price restraint is that it distorts markets. One consequence is less investment and less customer choice. These are hardly the goals of an enlightened industry. I would also like to echo and support the written testimony of Mr. Steve Shingaris, Changaris, the New York City Chapter Director of the National Waste and Recycling Association. As a member of the BIC's Trade Waste Advisory Board, I share the responsibility of conveying the challenges and goals of the industry. In today's testimony, I would like to address two critical and related issues that have drastically changed the recycling landscape in New York City and beyond since October, my last testimony. The first issue concerns the city's new mandate with respect to commercial recycling. Our company has put 3 additional trucks on the road to better manage clean recyclable materials. The monthly cost of having an additional truck in service is at least $20,000. While we share the general goals of recycling, contrary to public belief, recycling costs more to process than solid waste. The second issue is even more profound. The international recycling market has been upended by new policies instituted by China. China has long been the dominant player as the biggest importer of recyclable products such as plastic and fiber-based products. Beginning January 1st, 2018, China banned 24 types of solid waste, including unsorted paper and various plastics. Additionally, the bales of acceptable paper and cardboard must meet an unworkable standard of 0.5% contamination, whereas previously the standard was 2%. In many parts of the United States, mixed paper is going to landfills. The problem is not that the market is soft, there is no market. A year ago, a ton of OCC, commonly called cardboard, sold for $200 per ton. Today, the price is about $65. Mixed paper sold for $150 per ton a year ago. Today, it's worth $0. You simply cannot move it. Unlike previous movements in these markets, this time is different in that market forces are not causing the decline. Instead, a radical shift in China's public policy is the cause. There are no indications that this situation will change in the near or midterm. Markets in this country and others may eventually increase demand to deal with the great disparity of supply. At best, this is several years away. I would urge the Commission and members of the public to simply Google recycling markets China to learn about the impact this policy shift is having all over the world. Further, you can listen to a conference call from just this past Friday with Michael Hoffman, editor, environmental service analyst for Stifel Capital Markets, who interviewed Bill Moore of Associates to discuss the China impact on recycling markets. It's about a half-hour long. You'll learn plenty. One obvious forward-looking consequence is that prices charged for the collection of solid waste and recycling must change to reflect the industry's changing economics. Thus, I would urge a rate cap increase of at least 20%. I would also urge the BIC not to wait the traditional 2 years to review the rate cap, but to do so annually until the day when this artificial restraint on the market is ended. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Our next speaker is Andy Moss from Waste Connections.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Moss. I'm the Government Affairs Manager of Waste Connections in New York City. Waste Connections is the only publicly traded company collecting and transporting solid waste and recyclables in New York City. At the October 18, 2017 hearing, I testified on the additional costs facing all responsible solid waste companies, mainly due to the increased regulatory burden New York City haulers face. I've sent in an updated version of that testimony for the Commission's review, as I believe it captures not only the regulatory cost increases, but also the annual operating cost increases the industry encountered since the last rate adjustment. The major issues I'd like to address at today's hearing concerns the city's mandate with respect to commercial recycling and emissions. Our company has put additional trucks on the road to collect an increased amount of recyclable material that the change in the commercial recycling rules, not surprisingly, has led to. Before the change in law that made commercial recycling essentially the same as residential recycling, not every commercial customer had to separate glass and plastic. Now they do. The monthly cost of having an additional truck for us is approximately $30,000. Another change affecting the industry is Local Law 145, which requires all waste trucks to meet 2007 emissions or better by 2020. Simply put, the law requires a tremendous amount of capital investment in truck equipment. New trucks cost $370,000 when outfitted with the latest technology and safety equipment. Our fleet is over 100 trucks. The economics for every waste company are the same. We have to pay for fuel, for our workers' salaries, good working middle class salaries, by the way, the cost of tipping the garbage or recyclables, maintenance for our trucks, and all the other rent and all the other expenses required to run a business. The money left over after all these expenses, typically 10 to 20% of the revenue, is used to pay the interest on the money we borrow to buy our trucks and containers. The more trucks we have to buy, the more interest we have to pay. It's fundamental that all of these expenses and interest payments require corresponding revenue. Without sufficient revenue, there are no wages to pay or anything else. The only way to generate revenue is from the price customers pay for our service. The consequences for these laudable regulatory changes is that prices charged for the collection of solid waste and recycling must change to reflect the new requirements. Imagine a city where every industry was subject to a rate cap, including restaurants, hairdressers, lawyers. Would those businesses still exist? Yes, but they would certainly not be flourishing, nor would there be the variety of services that currently exist today. I urge the Commission to phase out the rate cap so the waste industry is treated like virtually every other service industry in the city. Moreover, I would urge because of the regulatory changes that the industry is facing, that the proposed 5.6 increase be greatly expanded to, as Ron Bergamini stated, at least 20%. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ron referred earlier to the testimony of Steve Shingaris of the National Waste and Recycling Association. We'd just like to acknowledge that Steve's testimony was received by the Commission earlier today. Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Seeing no one else, we will now close the record for this hearing. As a reminder, we will continue to accept written comments through the